Everyone has a different way to rank their favorite roller coasters. Before I jump into my current top 20 rides, I wanted to run through my criteria. Honestly, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Which ride do I want to ride the most? Which ride do I enjoy the most and have the most fun on? Which ride leaves me smiling afterwards? Secondly, I'm going to list my notable parks above. Out of these parks that I've visited, I'm missing some notable credits, such as Top Thrill Dragster from Cedar Point, Candymonium from Hershey Park, and Volcano the Blast Coaster, which is now defunct at King's Dominion. But anyway, let's jump in. Remember, these are just my opinions, and this list is constantly changing. Starting off our list at number 20 is the current headlining coaster at Islands of Adventure, the Incredible Hulk. This B&M sit-down looper is one of only 2 launched B&M rides in the world and features a tire drive launch system that sends riders up an incline to start the ride. Now this ride has a little bit of everything. A disorienting start with a 0G roll right out of the launch, a snappy cobra roll over a gorgeous setting, and a decent length. After the retheming and retracking, this ride is as entertaining and smooth as ever. However, the ride's second half definitely leaves something to be desired, as it tends to meander after the second vertical loop, but there's not much to knock on this great ride. Next up is a ride I feel doesn't get enough love. Flight of Fear is an indoor spaghetti bowl launch coaster manufactured by Premier Rides operating at King's Dominion. Now, going to this ride, I hadn't heard much about it and I was extremely surprised at how much fun it was. The LIM launch was pretty forceful, the inversions were great, and the darkness in the building only added to the excitement. I remember just laughing throughout this whole experience. However, the restraints on this ride are something that need to be mentioned. The lap bars are great, allowing a real sense of freedom, but the shin guards don't really serve any purpose and can be pretty painful by the time you hit the brake run. Of course, the theming is fun, it's not Disney level, but certainly well above your average Cedar Fair park. Once I get out to Kings Island, I certainly won't skip this clone. Next up is Griffin, the B&M dive coaster from Busch Gardens, Williamsburg in Virginia. I've been riding this floorless dive machine ever since it opened in 2007. Now you won't see the other dive coaster I've ridden on this list, Valraven from Cedar Point. The main reason why is the old B&M over-the-shoulder restraints seen on Griffin allow the riders to feel those drops so much more, and that's the main draw for these rides. I feel Valraven has a better layout than Griffin, but Griffin has so much more airtime. I am also a sucker for a good setting and a splashdown just for the aesthetic of the ride. I wish the ride was longer and featured a few more elements, but it is always entertaining to ride and I'll never skip it when I'm down in Williamsburg. Now, here's the first entry I feel I might catch some flack for. Gatekeeper is Cedar Point's massive B&M wing coaster that serves as the park's entrance, and it is constantly criticized for its lack of forces and how it crawls through its second half. I agree that this ride has pacing issues, it's no surprise, and it lacks the major intensity that some enthusiasts crave. On the other hand, it is situated in a park with Maverick, Raptor, and SteelVance. If you want intensity, head over to those rides. It doesn't make Gatekeeper a bad ride. The wing over drop into the in moment is one of the most unique ways to start a coaster, especially if you grab that left wing seat. The entire ride feels like you're flying on the coast, and could it use some extra speed throughout? Sure. Will I always catch a ride on this one at Cedar Point? Yes. Next up is Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. This is the ride that's been the longest since I've ridden out of all the coasters on this list. I've been to Hershey Park 5 out of the last 6 seasons, but almost exclusively during springtime in the park where Fahrenheit doesn't operate often. I haven't gotten this ride since 2014, however I absolutely love this sit-down looper from Intamin. The vertical lift, beyond vertical drop, and compact design are awesome. Now, this ride could use some extra length, sure, but it's smooth and intense and it's simple. One of Hershey's best coasters. Kingda Ka, the world's tallest and second fastest roller coaster, has been scaring visitors of Great Adventure for 15 years. Before I go any further, I tried my best to get on Top Thrill Dragster when I visited Cedar Point in 2018, but unfortunately, a common occurrence with these style of rides, it was down for the entire weekend. Reliability is just something these intimate accelerators lack. Anyway, Ka has an extremely forceful, albeit shaky launch. Not much needs to be said about the rest of the ride. The tower and descent are thrilling, but the top hat lacks any airtime. Finally, there's that massive bunny hill at the end of the ride that's taller than a lot of other coasters, and it gives a nice floater moment. If only this coaster featured lap bars and better dispatch times. Old, reliable, graceful B&M hypers, capacity machines and crowd pleasers. Does this ride offer the best airtime? No, but it's decent floater. Is this coaster unique and mold breaking? No, pretty standard L-shaped hyper layout. Do the stats break any records? Nope. Is this ride always fun and an absolute blast? Hell yes. I love the clamshell restraints. Anyway, I've ridden this ride so many times I can't even give you a number, and the setting gives phenomenal night rides over the water in the woods in Jersey. Admittedly, those night rides are probably what keeps this ride where it is, but hey, it's my list, right? I know plenty of parks with enthusiasts who would kill for a decent hyper like Nitro. Plus, its station music is from Mortal Kombat, so take that, possibly superior rides. Hey, you remember when I talked about B&M hypers? Yeah, it's time for the OG. Apollo's Chariot's ride experience hits me with so many similarities to Nitro. Growing up, I was able to get a bunch of rain rides on this thing, and damn, it hauled. What puts this over Nitro currently is its use of the terrain and a tiny bit stronger airtime. Actually, my only recent ride disappointed me, as the ride was closed all day due to Pantheon's construction, and we got the first train at 5 in the evening. This was my number one in the park for a while too, but it felt extremely slow and we rode in the front, so hopefully my memory of my earlier ride serves true next time I get down to Williamsburg. Well, I promise the next one isn't a hyper. For number 12, we have Superman at Six Flags New England. This is probably the best hyper layout I've ever seen. Out and back airtime, finished with a massive twister section, diving in and out of tunnels. Another ride I've ridden for years, I remember before the restraints changed, and damn, I miss those T-bars. The new block restraints really take away from the ride, and it dropped it on my list. Either way though, this ride features decent forces throughout and almost no roughness. The airtime is good but not great, certainly stronger than the previous two entries. Last time I rode, I actually got a big wad of wheel grease to the neck mid-ride during the twister section, which, it's not fun guys, it's not fun. Overall, it's an amazing ride that just needs some better restraints. See, I promised it wasn't a hyper. Boulder Dash seems to really divide riders. I've heard it called unbearably rough and just not fun. I land firmly on the other side. This is one of the few coasters I've ridden that feels completely out of control. The first drop feels like you're going to be thrown right off the tracks. The ride does have its rough spots, especially if you're riding further back in the train, but in my opinion, this is a front row ride every time. You will miss out on some airtime at the end, sure, but the wind in your face as you race through the trees and the hills is one of the best feelings out there. This terrain coaster is one of the most unique rides I've gotten on. Does it deserve all its golden ticket awards? In a world with El Toro and other amazing woodies, probably not, no. But it is a must ride if you're in the area, absolutely. The coaster starting out our top 10 might make some people angry. Alpengeist is my favorite B&M invert by far. I've enjoyed this so much more than Great Bear, Raptor, Talon, and the Batman clones. First things first, this ride is absolutely massive. The longest drop on a full circuit invert at 170 feet and is 5 feet away from being a hyper, being 195 feet tall. That drop seems to never end, and it hauls through its course. I haven't had any rides on this with a bad rattle, and even the Cobra roll doesn't bang my head that bad. I wish they extended the snow theming throughout the ride to feel more like Montu in Tampa Bay, but I don't understand why this ride seems so forgotten in this lineup. In my opinion, it's the true star of Busch Gardens until Pantheon opens up. Speaking of rides that seem to be forgotten about, why does this always get pushed to the side when discussing intimate accelerators? Storm Runner has a strong launch, 0 to 72 in 2 seconds, a top hat with some good airtime, and 3 inversions, including one of the most unique out there, the Flying Snake Dive. While this ride is short, like all other intimate accelerators, it offers a lot more than the usual model. This is one of those rides that gets me laughing and giddy every time I ride, and I just can't help but enjoy it. Especially when you roll up to that launch track and you get to hear, "Get ready, here we go." You know, my pipe dream would just be to put T-bars on this thing and I'd lose my mind. Hey, how can we make enthusiasts fight? Make an amazing ride with the strongest airtime around, and then add perhaps the worst roller coaster restraints ever made? Yeah, that'll do. Skyrush is the prototype wing-style hypercoaster from Intimate at Hershey. Now, forget everything I said about the other 3 hypers on this list. This ride is different. This ride is balls to the walls from start to end. A cable lift throws you up to the top before dropping you into one of the fastest layouts around, featuring the 2 strongest ejector moments you'll find. If this ride had great restraints, I promise these hills would still hurt because they're that insane. I understand why some people can't get over the restraints. I get it. but I've gotten rides on this coaster with some room and some comfort, and my god, it will leave you shaking afterwards. Now Hershey is opening the polar opposite hyper, but who would complain about having 2 hyper coasters at their home park? We finally get to the first RMC on this list, Little Compact Wicked Cyclone. I rode this for the first time the year it opened, not realizing what RMC does because I wasn't really a coaster enthusiast yet. I saw the stats and gawked, doubting it could be crazy. Oh my, was I wrong. The first drop is 109 feet, and it is one of the best first drops I have ever experienced. It absolutely whips you out of the seat no matter where you are and sets the tone for the entire ride. Every element is taken hard and one after another. There's extreme airtime and fun inversions. That stall will always catch me off guard, and it always feels like I'm going to get dropped out of the train. Now the third lap pretty much stays on the ground, and it loses a lot of its speed. But if I had to choose between 2 fast laps and then brakes, or adding a slower third lap, I'll want the extra length. That pacing at the end, however, is why this ride isn't a little bit higher. I probably could not pick 2 more different roller coasters back to back if I tried. Millennium Force is perhaps the most iconic roller coaster ever built. This intimate giga features long drawn-out overbanks and some airtime hills over its nearly 6,700 feet of track. You'll experience some strong airtime on a drop that seems to never end, as well as an extremely smooth ride as you feel every ounce of speed flying through the course. This ride was built to showcase its speed and its height. In all honesty, this ride holds a special place in my heart. It was my #1 bucket list ride ever since I was around the age of 8. However, I feel I need to rebut the forceless knocks this ride gets. The drop and the turnaround are pretty darn forceful, and the airtime hills showcase some solid floater. Will you gray out on this ride? Probably not. But I feel the hype around this ride leads many to be disappointed and then knocking this ride, which makes it become underrated in my opinion. But it is just so iconic, and it is absolutely a fun ride. Alright, I don't need to explain why El Toro is this high. Every enthusiast knows why. It features perhaps the best first drop and airtime in the world, and has a masterful layout that isn't short. However, I do feel like I need to explain why this ride isn't any higher. I've gotten dozens of rides on this throughout the years, as it's in one of my home parks. And I've had a couple bad rides on it where it's riding rough, or it's just uncomfortable, or I've been stapled. Now I understand why that shouldn't take away from the ride. I'm sure there may be some recency bias in there as well, as all the rides listed above it, I have less rides on, and I probably just want to experience them more. In all honesty, the only reason why this isn't higher is because of how good the next 3 are. In my opinion, this is the best Woody in the world. No, I haven't gotten on Void yet, but this needs to be a bucket list ride for any enthusiast. Coming in 4th place is the second RMC on this list, and another fantastic small-sized ride. Twisted Timbers is famous for its barrel roll drop and 3 consecutive camelback ejector hills. Now these are absolutely amazing, but you know, one element that shocked me was how fun the cutback and overbank turns were. I know RMC is known for airtime, but I feel like their inversions kind of get overlooked. They're fantastic. I think Twisted Timbers does everything right. Ejector airtime, strong inversions, it's glossy smooth, and it's just a fun time to ride all the way through those supports. I really don't have any knocks on this ride. The only reason it isn't higher is the same reason why El Toro isn't higher. The next 3 are just amazing. Alright, there needs to be more of these. There needs to be more intimate blitz coasters, and there should be one at every headlining park for all the chains. Now, Maverick broke away from Cedar Point's concept of every ride breaking records. Instead, it's small, intense, and it's one of the best rides ever built. The Beyond vertical drop supplies great airtime, throws you out of the seat. The S-turns are intense, the horseshoe roll is fun, the launch is extremely forceful, and even if there are trims after that, this ride absolutely hauls, and it really lives up to its name. Like I said, I just need more of these. The launch itself is really what puts it over Twisted Timbers for me, otherwise they'd be pretty much even. They both feature great airtime, intensity, and inversions. Maverick proved that size is absolutely not everything, and is always a ride I try to marathon whenever I can get up to the point. Now I know a lot of enthusiasts will argue that Twisted Timbers deserves this spot over I-305, but I just couldn't do it. Why? When a coaster gets my stomach fluttering beforehand and then leaves me shaking and awestruck afterwards, there really isn't anything better than that. I-305 was Sky Rush to me, but bigger, faster, and without the world's strongest thigh crushers. Sure, the over-the-shoulder straps aren't the best, but they don't hinder the experience. My first ride was the first train of the day, front row with no one else but the people I was riding with. The 3 rides that day all had me graying out and nearly blacking out on the first turn. The floater on the airtime hill after that is fun. It's not the strongest, but it's fun. And the second half is weakened by trims, but the sheer insanity and scale of this monstrosity left a permanent smile on my face for the rest of the day. And that's all you can ask for in a ride. Now, I don't think this is going to surprise anyone, and in all honesty, I don't know what more I can say about this ride that hasn't already been said, but number 1 is SteelVance. SteelVance is the marriage of RMC with an absolutely massive structure to work with and a Cedar Point budget. The world's first hyper hybrid has the world record for airtime, and oh boy does it feel like it does. Starting before you even hit the lift hill, and then not even letting up till the very end. The first half feels like something out of a No Limits or Planet Coaster game, with its insane first drop and massive outer bank hills. And after the brake run, the coaster feels more like a mix of Twisted Timbers and Wicked Cyclone. The ride is glossy smooth and forceful throughout. Not to mention, this coaster is absolutely gorgeous from every single angle. It's extremely picturesque. As you approach the coaster through Frontier Town, you get to see the beautiful sign and watch as this monster towers over you. Everything great about RMC shines here, and it's all multiplied by the sheer size, speed, and length of this masterpiece of a coaster. And that's going to be it for my list. How would you rank these roller coasters? If you want more content, feel free to leave a suggestion what you'd like to see next, and check out the Island Coasters Instagram and Twitter pages. That's going to be all for now. Till next time, signing off here from the shores of Island Coasters.